There we go. Thank you, everybody, for joining today here. My name is Derek Wazinski, and I'm here to go ahead and provide you a little bit of information in regards to what we do here at Parallels, but more importantly, what we do in the aspect of endpoint management that you're currently taking a look at. This webinar is recorded for your convenience, so you'll be provided a link to the webinar as well. If you have any questions or anything else like that during the process of the webinar, please feel free to go ahead and initiate a question via the chat window, and we can go ahead and provide you answers either during or after the webinar itself. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'd like to thank everybody for attending this webinar. So the purpose of this webinar is to hopefully provide you a roadmap in which you can go ahead and provide a proposal and presentation to your IT organization or to your leadership organization to bring on an endpoint management solution. Now, whether it's ours here at Parallels or someone else's, it's pretty much the same process that you seem to go through. There's a project roadmap, and you have a beginning of a project, and obviously you have the end of the project. And then during the project, you go through different phases. So right now, you're somewhere in between needs assessment and investigation. You're taking a look at your own internal needs. You're investigating the different solutions out there. Pretty soon, you'll get into the demonstration board where you'll want to go ahead and demonstrate, or if you're large enough, trial the solution within your own environment. You're going to compare everything together, and you're going to go ahead and get a proposal. And then hopefully once you compare and get different proposals, you'll make a purchase and you'll make an implementation. And so most organizations, they go ahead and get started in this process, and they go swimmingly through it. They're able to define their needs, they investigate everything, they make a turn into demonstration and comparison, and then they get all their proposals. And now they're ready to go ahead and make their purchase of their solution and implement, and something happens. Something invariably happens, specifically when it comes to universal endpoint management or endpoint management in general, is the car stops, the project stops, things are pushed to the next quarter, to the next year, other projects take priority. And we've determined here at Parallels it's because the project itself runs out of gas. The project itself runs out of gas primarily because we as Parallels have made a massive mistake in providing you the information you need to make a decision. See, what we've done is we've concentrated on features. We've concentrated on what our solution does within SCCM, how it manages a Mac, how you can bind AD, all these other things that you would normally see in a webinar or a demonstration like this. But what we don't provide is a deep dive into the actual solution itself, the problems and the challenges that universal endpoint management can solve when it's operated from within SCCM, within your organization. Now, when we take a look at this, we have to identify that most IT organizations have multiple projects and multiple ideas and multiple things going on. And a lot of them are super exciting. Big data is exciting. Internet of Things are exciting. Custom apps are exciting. This is everything that seems to be on the mind of IT directors, managers, CIOs, and so when they're drafting up their IT budget for this quarter or next fiscal, they want stuff that's exciting. They want Internet of Things. They want cloud-based applications. They want something that magnifies end-user experience. You probably heard a lot of this stuff in meetings and everything else. You probably even said some of them in meetings as far as to try to get interest within your IT projects. Well, here at Parallels, we kind of understand in terms of excitement, endpoint management is the vanilla ice cream of IT projects. It's not all that exciting. It's pretty standard fare. I mean, it's interesting, it's delicious, but it's still not exciting. Every other IT project that you think about is literally more exciting than endpoint management, and we understand that, and we kind of embrace that because understanding that it's not exciting doesn't necessarily mean it's not important, because you see in this whole ecosystem of where you're sitting and all of these problems and challenges that you're having, Endpoint management, universal endpoint management, can go ahead and solve or really go forward in trying to solve your security issues you have in your network. It can provide you help with your IS budget or your IT budget by saving you by saving spend. It solves a BYOD and a CYOD problem. If people want to bring all kinds of devices into your network, you're able to go ahead and better manage them, and it provides you much sought after end user satisfaction. So the purpose of this webinar is not only to instruct you on parallel MAC management, which we will, and we're going to show you exactly how it works, but to really arm you with the information you need because you found us. You found us through the internet. You went ahead and searched us. You want to take a look at what we have to offer. But this is to go ahead and give you the fuel that you need so you can make sure your race car makes it all the way around the track, that you're able to get past proposal into purchase and into implementation, whether it be parallels or some other solution that you purchase. We want to make sure you have the information you need. So firstly, what most IT managers and IT directors and IT organizations are afraid of is the word breach. Breaching of network security is at the paramount challenge, and it's at the top of mind of every IT leader out there. And there's good reason for it, because as IBM reports, over 50% of networks that are out there have already been breached in one way or another. 70% of those breaches started at an endpoint. Some guy, some gal with their PC or their Mac, that endpoint was breached, and someone or something got into the network to pull data. The city of Baltimore has been shut down for how many weeks now because of ransomware. And the capabilities, that started from an endpoint. That started from somebody in an unprotected endpoint clicking on something to go ahead and start that whole process. And the worst part about Baltimore, and the worst part about most endpoint breaches like that, is that they're preventable. The patches already exist from the software manufacturers to go ahead and solve that problem. The holes can be filled. It's just a matter of getting those patches out to those devices, out to those endpoints in order to go ahead and solve that problem, right? So when you're talking about breaches, you really have to take a look at there are over 122,000 right now known common vulnerabilities and exposures out there, with over 5,000 that have been identified by the National Institutes of Standards and Technology just this year. Most of them have been corrected by software manufacturers. It's the need, it's the effort that it takes you and your organization to get those patches out throughout your organization onto those endpoints. So right now there is a massive investment going on in endpoint security. What do I mean by massive? Well, in 2015, $850 million was spent worldwide on endpoint security, enterprise endpoint security, managing, locking down, pushing patches, pushing software updates out to those endpoints. In 2017, that increased to $1.47 billion. In 2019, it's projected to be over $6 billion. And in just a few short years, over $10 billion a year is going to be spent by organizations around the world on endpoint security. So you may ask me, well, Derek, why are so many people spending that much on endpoint security? Well, remember what we talked about in those breaches? 50% of networks are breached, 70% come from the endpoint, and over 90% of them are patchable. Well, a breach costs a U.S. company an average of $7.9 million in lost labor, in lost information, in lost public relations, the challenges that an organization has. And if you think, well, for your organization, would it be 7 million? I don't know, maybe it'd be 700,000, maybe it would be 70 million. But do you really want to have that in? If you can protect yourself, or at least protect yourself to the point where you can say, well, the company that provided me the software issued the patch and I patched it. So I was able to take care of everything up to that point. It's the ability for you and your organization to go ahead and do everything humanly possible to protect your network from potential breach. So you've done a lot for that already. Most likely, since you're in this webinar, since you found us out, you already understand the need for central endpoint management. Because like most organizations, you're using System Center and System Center Configuration Manager to manage those PC endpoints. And that's fantastic and that's great and that's exactly what you should be doing. The challenge is that you are right now using SCCM and you have to update 8,000 PCs with a piece of software with a patch update that. Well, there's ways for you to do that. You know how to do that within SCCM. You can either manually deploy, you can auto. There's multiple ways that you can go ahead and do that. The challenge is how do you do that to what we're talking about here at Parallels with your Mac devices? How do you accurately push out those patches? How do you make sure Microsoft Office is patched on the Macs just like it is on the PCs to make sure you don't get the elemental P virus or the virus of the day or whatever else, ransomware or whatever else comes out in order to whatever else comes out to threaten your organization? So I think you understand, since you're in this webinar, doing nothing is really not an option. You can't simply just say, "Hey, the Macs are going to manage themselves," because that's not how any of this works. And and you and I know that if you just leave them alone, that's an option you can't take. So you have to figure out something. Well, you may say, "Well, Derek, Macs aren't really a part of my network. My network is mostly Windows, so I'm going to go ahead and manage everything through SCCM, and we'll figure something else out for that." And that's understandable because right now in 2019, Windows controls 70% of the desktop market share in North America. So you're probably thinking you may have 80% or 90% of your network, which is PC based, Windows PC based. So you think you're doing fine. That's 2019. Let's take a look at what the last 10 years and the last 10 years looks like. Desktop market share for Windows has drastically fallen. Now hovering over 70, about 70%, 69.6% as of April. It used to be 10 years ago, 90% of the desktops out there were Windows based. And while that's a small percentage, look at the bottom grayscale where you have the number of OS X devices that are out there on desktops in the world has almost doubled in the last 10 years. There are more Macs out there in the world being utilized on enterprise networks than there were 5 years ago, than there were 10 years ago. And what's the reason for that? It's because when you ask the end user, if you had the choice, would you like to use a Mac or a PC to do your job? They're invariably going to choose the PC. Whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what they do. And the customer, the challenges you're having with your end users and your customers is really important, because in the world we live in, IT help desk metrics have changed. It's no longer just how many tickets did you answer, how quickly did you get your tickets answered, how quickly did you solve those problems. That's the old way of doing that. The very first thing, you have customer satisfaction. How do your end users rate their experience with your IT department? And then they have something now, it's called Net Promoter, where there's three types of end users. There's detractors, there's passives, and there's promoters. Detractors are, "I hate the IT department, I never want to talk to them." Passives are like, "Meh, IT department's okay." And the promoters are like, "Hey, the IT department is the greatest department out there. They help me all the time. They're fantastic." And what happens now within the world of IT metrics is two of these two different metrics are merging. And what's coming up in this Venn diagram is something called customer effort. And customer effort is when you combine the Net Promoter Score with the customer satisfaction score. And really, in basic English, it's, does the IT department make it easier to do your job? Because as IT professionals, our job is to create an ecosystem or to create an organization that allows end users to go ahead and do their jobs. And invariably, since we're coming from a Windows-based mind frame or a Windows-based mindset, we think, what? We prefer PCs. We don't want Macs on our network. We want to manage things through SCCM. We want to manage things through Configuration Manager. So let's just go ahead and do that. So that's what we do. And we say, you know what? You're not going to be able to bring a Mac on the network. We're not going to allow you to do that. And this is the problem. What you tell an end user, no, a user experience designer, or maybe a programmer, or maybe a marketing person, that they can't use a Mac to do their jobs. How is that customer effort score going to be affected for you? Are they going to say that the IT department is making it easier to do their job? So we have to come to the determination that we've got a couple bad choices. And the bad choices are this: we have to either leave Mac users to their own devices and let them manage their own updates, or we have to figure out something else in order to go ahead and manage them, bring on another piece of software in order to go ahead and manage them. Well, letting Mac users manage their own updates causes most IT administrators and IT professionals to run screaming into the night. You'd never allow a Windows user to manage their own updates. So allowing them to do that, it's just not an option. And asking them to bring in their Macs to the help desk or to physically bring in their devices to get their updates and patches, I mean, that's like waiting for the sun to come up on the dark side of the moon. It's simply not going to happen. Mac users, we know, are already different. So what choice does that leave you? That leaves you where you have to go ahead and bring on yet another piece of software. That's what we call it. We call it Yapos, another piece of software. A third-party console that sits next to SCCM, that sits next to Configuration Manager, that you have to go ahead and manage. Which one? Which one are you supposed to choose? Which one works for you? Which one is going to work in conjunction with your current help desk system or your ticketing system or something else? Which one is going to work, pull information or put information into SCCM for you, since you're managing most of your network in that as well? So what we have also discovered and found when it comes to third-party products is, listen, already it takes a long time for you to update and patch your network and patch your endpoints anyways. And the reason primarily is because you need to make sure these patches don't screw something else up on your network. You deploy the patch, you make sure you do it in a test environment, it doesn't screw up the ERP system, doesn't screw up the CRM, doesn't screw up all our custom stuff. Okay, we can deploy the patch. Well, the problem is your SCCM team and your Windows team is doing that on that side. You've got your other team, your Windows team now, that's already on another console, and they're managing that process. How does that happen? What are they, what packages are you throwing over the wall of confusion, we call it, in order to go ahead and do that? It's just adding time where unprotected endpoints are out there that are susceptible to breach. But we think there's a solution. And our solution is managing your Macs within SCCM and doing that with Parallels Mac Management. We believe that you can leverage SCCM, what you've already invested in it, and you've already purchased, and fully extend it to your Macs. You can gain control of your Macs on your network and take action on them just like PCs. Your endpoint discovery happens right alongside your Windows discovery, so you don't have to do anything special in order to go ahead and do your job. You can extend all of the features and all of the functionality you've invested in SCCM, the infrastructure, the process, all the skills that you've honed over the years of doing your job, and you can manage those Macs simply like you manage PCs. And you provide yourself and your SCCM team the best Mac management OS capabilities out there. So let's talk a little bit about Parallels Mac Management. We believe that companies that use SCCM for managing their PCs are underestimating the value of their solution when they're trying to bring their Macs in. What we are is Parallels Mac Management is a plugin. It's not a Yapos. It's not another piece of software. It's not a console. It's a plugin that plugs into the console of System Center Configuration Manager. But it also leverages the years of administration experience we have within Windows, and the years that we have experience working with the Mac OS platform on our Parallels desktop side. So we have the best of both worlds there. So what we mean by integrate. We seamlessly integrate with SCCM. What you're taking a look at here is an actual screenshot of the SCCM console. You see Parallels Mac Management is simply just a button in there. We are tightly integrated within SCCM. All of the tasks that you would do on a Mac are done within the SCCM console. Most of the actions are done using standard SCCM dialogues. Some of them are extended to provide Mac-specific information, and we store all that data in the SCCM site code database. So if you have a third-party help desk system that you're pulling that data, or in an inventorying system, all of that data is going into the site code database. We call this a single pane of glass. Well, what do we mean by that? A single pane of glass allows you to manage everything, your Macs and your PCs, through this one interface. You can discover and enroll all your Macs. You can enforce OS compliance. You can do all inventory and reporting. I mean, you can go ahead and find extended information, find information like users that have logged on and how long their session was. You can even have support for software metering and usage report cycle. Determine what software is actively used on your Macs right now, and then determine and plan for the licensing that you need on your Mac computers. And you don't have to do it through a third party. You can do it through SCCM specifically. Software deployment. We all deploy software out there. Let's say you've got a piece of software you've got to deploy, and you have to. It's for maybe a new Mac on your. Someone in marketing got a new Mac, and you have to deploy it. Working within an IT organization, that getting new software and new hardware up, running, and properly in its environment, that's installation, configuration, running, testing, making necessary changes. That can take hours. You can deploy software to Macs on your network using both packages and applications. Applications are displayed in the Parallels application portal on Macs. Maintenance windows are supported, and you can deploy software either for interactive or, wait for it, silent deployment. You can silently deploy software to your Mac users from SCCM without doing anything special within a third-party application. So let's talk about OS images deployment. We all know that the advent of imaging made it a lot easier for us to do our jobs within IT. It saves time and effort. Manually setting up a single computer. I remember back in the 90s, we had to load Windows on new machines that would come in. You'd have 52 Windows floppy disks that you'd have to put into a device in order for it to go ahead and get the OS loaded. That's no longer the case. Now you can go ahead and out those images. You can deploy these images on Macs, again, using both packages and applications. So the ability to image a Mac exists now within SCCM for you. So just like PCs, you can manage your Macs the same way. Software updates. Software is updated. That's why there's versions. We're on version 7.3 of Parallels Mac Management. You've got a lot of versions and a lot of dot releases on your desktop right now. Let's say you have patches that fix a particular bug. You can push that out not only to your PC devices now within SCCM, but with the power of Parallels Mac Management, you can also do it on your Macs. Apple software updates are also supported by integration with SCCM using WSUS. You can literally see compliant, required, not required, and unknown statuses. You can automate packaging with ADRs. And the best part is it's the same right-click process. So if you've ever right-clicked and said create software update within SCCM, you do the same thing with your Macs in this plugin. Because again, it's a plugin to not a separate piece of software. And remote access. Within SCCM now, you can finally remotely access a Mac using SSH or VNC. So let's say you're in a university and a student wanted to download a file that might compromise network security. If the Mac isn't managed, there's not really much you can do. Now, with Mac management within SCCM, you can access via VNC, you can log in as the root, and you can actually check the folders yourselves. So again, providing you this capability, remote access directly from the console. So those are just some of the features and functionality for Parallels Mac Management that we provide. What do we include with the system? Well, the system requirements themselves, they're very basic system requirements. You need to be running a certain version of SCCM. We support all versions of Microsoft Windows. So all versions that are supported by SCCM, we day zero support them in Parallels Mac Management. As far as OSs, 10.7 and later for Mac OSs, and to be managed, there's a small client that needs to be installed on the Mac, which can be automatically deployed as well. So you can go ahead and do that. And if you're looking to create and edit and go farther into editing configuration profiles, there is a requirement for a Mac OS server, but that's only for that functionality, and we can explain that later in the deep dive tomorrow. What's included? Well, what's included within Parallels Mac Management? Well, we include remote installation. We assist you with upgrades for free, and we give you 24/7 support. That's not extra. That's not a line item in the quote. When you get a quote from Parallels and it's like, well, this is the price, that's all included. We're not going to charge you another $3,000 to get a special certification in our software. You already know SCCM. We're not going to go ahead and add another level of certification to you. And really, when it comes down to it, even the most complex Active Directory structures in that can take anywhere from 4 to 6 hours just to install. One of the ways we do that is we have a pre-install checker that you can run up against your installation of SCCM right now, and if you get all green lights, you're ready to grow. If you get any yellow or any red, you can go ahead and correct those issues within SCCM prior to installation, so you can get everything up and running. And most importantly, they're in red in the very bottom. There's no special training or no additional console needed. In version 7.3, which was just recent release, we have some new features. We supported Mac OS Mojave from day zero. One of the benefits of being parallels and being directly intertwined with the Mac OS is we provide access to that OS day one. We're on the alpha programs, we're on the beta programs, so we know exactly what's going on. We also have a solution for those nasty T2 chip Macs that you have out there that shut down NetBoot and you can't image and you can't do anything else like that. We've got something to help you with that. We also provide mobile device management for user-approved MDM, signed MDM, and we can deploy configurations via MDM. So those are some of the new things that we brought on with 7.3. Well, what's the cost? Everybody asks, well, Derek, this sounds great. I get it. Thank you for giving me all the information up front so I can create a budget. But what's the cost? What's in the box specifically? What do I need to go ahead and ask for? Well, here's a very, very basic back-of-the-envelope cocktail napkin way of thinking about Mac management with Parallels. If you're a corporation, a for-profit corporation, you're looking at about $3.75 per Mac per month. That's it. That's a good back-of-the-envelope way of thinking of things. If you're an educational, K through 12 or higher ed, or a not-for-profit, you're looking at about $2.50 per Mac per month. That's it. No installation cost, no training cost, no added support cost or maintenance cost. We are a subscription service. We offer 1-year, 2-year, and 3-year subscriptions for Parallels Mac management. So now you know exactly what our costs are. So now you have, armed with what you know about and what you're looking at, we can see how far we can get you down the road. Does Parallels Mac management suit your needs? That's up for you to decide. One of the ways to decide is take a look at who's using it right now. All of these organizations, whether in government, higher ed, K through 12, manufacturing, consumer goods, they use Parallels Mac management every day to push out updates and to manage their Macs from within SCCM. Will it work for you? It's completely up for you to decide. There's a couple of different ways. Tomorrow, there's going to be a deep dive demo. We do 2 sets of webinars a week. One is what we call an overview, where we kind of give you the solution, what we're trying to solve for, to arm you with the information you need in order to make your budget case for some type of endpoint solution, whether it be Parallels or whether it be something else. But we also provide every Thursday a deep dive demo, where we have an engineer go through the actual consoles of SCCM and show you how to do some of the things we talked about. Show you how to remote in, show you how to do a wipe and lock, a remote wipe and lock, show you how to push out a patch update, show you how to bind a Mac to Active Directory, or not, because you don't need to have the Macs bound to AD in order to manage them. That's one of the benefits of doing things through SCCM. So you can find out all this stuff in the deep dive tomorrow. If you'd like to, just send a chat or send an email to me, or go back on our website and we can get you registered for the deep dive. If you have over 500 Macs right now, right after this, you can give us a call and we can set you up with a trial, a trial proof of concept, where you can either load it in production or load it in your test environment and manage a couple of Macs, push it up against your AD, push it up against the way you have SCCM running, and see if it works for you. Basically, kick the tires and light the fires to see if it works. And then, not only did I give you the MSRP of what the pricing is, but we sell through resellers. So you don't get a quote with Parallels on the top that you're getting a quote from us that you have to give me a credit card number or something else like that. We sell through CDW, SHI, all of the Insight, all of the resellers that you already buy and rely on software and hardware in your organizations. So you could literally just pick up the phone right now after this webinar and talk to your SHI rep and say, hey, give me a quote on 300 users for Parallels Mac Management for SCCM, and they'd be able to provide you the quote there. So that's what you can do. So when you take a look at what we do in comparable to SCCM, right now you're running SCCM within your organization, and you can see here there's basically kind of four things that you can do on those Macs. When you utilize our plugin, our low cost, low effort for installation plugin, all of these checkboxes appear. And you're able now to do software meeting, login tracking. You can do self-service application portal for Macs, enforce file vault encryption. Hey, how about that new announcement from Microsoft that they support BitLocker? You can support everything. That you can make sure you can encrypt everything now, because we've been File 2 or File Vault 2 encryption capable since 2014, 2015. So now both your PCs and your Macs, you can manage those encrypted hard disks through SCCM. So we give you that capability. Here's my information, so you can shoot me an email or give me a call in reference to either getting on the demo. We did have a question here, and we had a couple questions here, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull up some of these questions here in the chat. We have someone who's very interested in seeing the deep dive tomorrow. Yes, I will go ahead and send over the registration link for you for the deep dive. And let's see here. We have... there's another question here. It's like, how do we compare to third-party applications? That's a good question. So you know, we're obviously going to say, hey, we're the best. But when you think about it, the biggest thing you can take away from this meeting, if you forget everything else I've said, we are not a third-party console. You don't have to install another screen in order to go ahead and manage your Macs on something else. You're already in SCCM. You work, you live, you breathe within SCCM. That's what you do. We're just a plug into that. So when you go through the deep dive, we've had SCCM administrators that have been working on SCCM 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and they say, you know, this was great, but it was kind of boring, because I kind of already knew how to create a software update. I knew how to do a remote wipe and lock. I knew how to do all these things to PCs. You just showed me how to do the same things on Macs. And we're like, that's the point. We're not here to teach you a whole other way to roll a ball down the hill. You already know how to do that. You do that every day. So what we're giving you is the capability to go ahead and manage those Macs with the same keystrokes, with the same functionality, just like you do. And then we have one more question here. Yes. So the recording. Those of you that have attended, will go ahead and get a link to the recording afterwards in a thank you email. We'll also provide, if you'd like, we have unbranded version of the deck that you can go ahead and use, because there's some really good information up front about the number of breaches and all that information that many of our customers really like to go ahead and deliver to their organizations. Thank you so much. We're at the end of this, so thank you so much for attending. We really do appreciate your time and effort, and we'll be touching base with you shortly. Thanks so much, and please have yourself a wonderful rest of the day.